I don't need to introduce you to Fernanda Torres. She's one of the most popular actresses in the world today. And the reception to her Golden Globe nomination has been... Wait, what? What do you mean you don't know Fernanda Torres? This incredibly charismatic sitcom actress trained in classic theater who fuels a horde of online memes and was recently praised for her heartbreaking dramatic delivery in I'm Still Here, highly awarded at the Venice Film Festival. What do you mean you don't know Fernanda Torres? She's so popular that when the Academy posted the photos of the Governor's Ball last month, Hollywood A-listers like Willem Dafoe and Tilda Swinton had 50,000 likes on their photos and Fernanda had like 2.9 million likes in hers. You must know her! She's the Brazilian Pikachu.
Fernanda, como você se sente participar desse evento, que é o maior evento de cultura pop do mundo?
Eu me sinto Pikachu.
And that was the only way I could possibly find to mention Pokemon in this video and stay a little bit in character. Oh yeah, you're right. The Brazilian Pikachu. Yeah, you're right, dear stranger online. Maybe that's why you've never heard of her before, but trust me, she is one of the most popular actresses in the world today. Millions of people are invested in her potential Oscar nomination later this month, campaigning and pushing up tags on social media as the next chapter in a crazy story that begins in the 90s and involves the CIA, Harvey Weinstein, crimes committed by a military dictatorship, Gwyneth Paltrow and Alzheimer's, and yes, this is also a content warning for the things below. You better get comfy because I really don't know where to begin to explain to you who Fernanda Torres is and why her nomination for a silly little statue means so much for an entire country. Maybe I should start by talking about her mom. 1999, remember it? Well, me neither, but this year is forever marked in the halls of Brazilian cinema as the year that Fernanda Montenegro, Fernanda Torres' mom, was nominated for the Best Actress Oscar. Maybe one of the greatest of the 20th century, she has been acting in TV and theater since the 50s and has headlined some of the biggest classics this country has ever filmed, like A Dog's Will and 1999 Best Foreign Film nominee, Central Station.
Performance by an actress in the leading role, the nominees are Cate Blanchett in Elizabeth, Fernanda Montenegro in Central Station, Gwyneth Paltrow in Shakespeare in Love, Meryl Streep in One True
Estou ali entre essas divinas
Emily Watson
criaturas
in Hillary and
maravilhosas,
Jackie. In the
louras.
category
That was a huge moment. She was the first ever Latin American actress to be nominated and to this day, the only Brazilian to do so in a movie that is, mind you, not in English. Central Station is a cornerstone film in Latin American cinema about the power of writing and the privilege it gives in a country where being poor usually meant being illiterate. It's almost as if a part of your identity was denied. About dreams of uniting a country with stark inequalities through the words that bring us together.
Aí eu não tenho fome, não é? Eu não tenho fome, só você. Não tem comida, não tem mais dinheiro, não tem mais comida. Acabou. Se é isso que você quer saber, acabou.
O que a gente vai fazer agora?
Sei lá.
I will not dive deep into it because I don't want to go into a tangent 3 minutes into this video, but beautiful masterpiece, add it to your list. All I need to tell you is everybody was hyped about this nomination and the whole country stopped still, late into the early hours of the morning, to watch the ceremony, in a way that is usually reserved for World Cup matches. Fernanda Montenegro was nominated alongside Cate Blanchett, God herself Meryl Streep, Emily Watson and Gwyneth Paltrow. To quote Fernanda, she was just standing there among these beautiful, divine, blonde creatures. And then, as the Joker went to announce the winner, the entire country's heart skipped a beat.
And the Oscar goes to Gwyneth Paltrow. Shakespeare in Love.
Are you being serious right now? Gwyneth Paltrow? And what the hell is even Shakespeare in Love? Mid-ass movie, 3.3 on Letterboxd. Is this for real? But wait, dear stranger online. It gets worse.
I don't feel very deserving of this in your presence, but I would like to thank Harvey Weinstein.
Major yikes! Gwyneth baby! Aged super well. I'm not going to delve into any conspiracy theories here, but if you want to search for Harvey Weinstein Miramax Oscars, I won't stop you. I would just use this space to quote one of my favorite YouTubers, Evasive.
This is a Shakespeare fanfic about him writing Romeo and Juliet. People mostly remember it these days because it beat Saving Private Ryan at the Oscars, and also for this really weird scene where Shakespeare grabs a kid by the balls.
Oh, are you ready to fall in love again? I am, Master Shakespeare. Your voice. Have they dropped?
No, a touch of cold only.
Back to our subject in point. Montenegro said a few years after the ceremony that, really, she never actually thought she had a chance.
Porque é o seguinte, era impossível levar aquele prêmio. Meryl Streep perdeu. A Blanche, no auge da sua... Como é que eu ia pensar em ganhar alguma coisa? Fiquei lá, foi interessante.
Divertiu-se.
Importante. Ninguém me conhecia, compreendeu? Latina, pode ser do México para baixo, tá entendendo?
But it was a forming moment for Brazilian cinema and something that we, as a nation, still speak about to this day. About the pride in having our stories and our struggles being highlighted on an international stage. To be able to share who we are, to have voices so often not heard due to language, due to geography, due to class, listened. And Brazilians are salty to this day, leaving very angry messages for Gwyneth Paltrow whenever this story is brought up. And not undeservingly, it doesn't help when you publish videos using your Oscar as a doorstop.
And what a beautiful Academy Award!
My doorstop! It works perfectly.
When we say come to Brazil, Gwyneth Paltrow is not included. You're not invited. Everyone else is included, yes, you are included, Catherine from New Jersey. Come to Brazil. We have gay people and incredible cocktails. You should definitely try checkmate. Gwyneth Paltrow, just don't. Where am I going with all of this? Yes, even without her Oscar, Fernanda Montenegro is and will forever be a legend. In theater, in film, and in TV. An Emmy winner and an inspiration for every single young person that steps on stage in this country for decades to come. She is a cornerstone of Brazilian culture, and if that wasn't enough, she also gave us her daughter, Fernanda Torres, our favorite nepobaby, who has acted alongside her mom in theater and has starred in soap operas that were watched by millions of people ever since her teens. A brilliant writer and one of the most important voices in Brazilian comedy. She's so fun. Honestly, I'm so sorry for you who don't speak Portuguese because I could literally put an audio cue of phrases from her in every single break I have on this video.
Você viu a Fernanda Torres? Totalmente drogada.
She's energetic and out there and authentic and acting with her mom again. And the most heartfelt film I have seen this entire year. I'm not exaggerating, I cried for half an hour after it ended. I'm Still Here is directed by Walter Salles, who has also directed Central Station. And the stars have aligned so that Fernanda now has the opportunity to avenge for an entire nation her mom's lost Oscar, currently at the doorstep of Gwyneth Paltrow. I'm Still Here, as it is the case often with Salles' films, has been really well received in international film festivals, and Fernanda's choice to lead it was an unusual one. She said in interviews she was really surprised with Walter's invitation for this heavy, dramatic role after years focusing on writing and comedy, but she took it head on and basically let this complex character live underneath her skin, to tell the story of a mother who is taken away from her idyllic life and forced to become an activist for the right of keeping her family's memory alive.
It's the first character I do that is close to tragedy. And once my mother told me, you know, Nanda, in tragedy, if you are gonna do Hecuba or Antigona, you cannot cry. I mean, if Hecuba starts crying in the first bad news that she receives, at the end, she'll look like a cockroach. So, Hecuba faces tragedy. And I remember that when I was playing Eunice.
And honestly, she has never been this good and has never taken a role with as much gravitas as this one. And she deserves so much recognition for it. And thanks to her stellar performance, Brazil is closer than ever to another Best Actress nomination after 25 years. On January 17, if she gets this Oscar nomination, the entire country will celebrate like a World Cup victory. Nice of you to tell us that, Cecily. What an interesting curiosity. A fun fact at the Cecily channel. Well, if you have followed me for a while, you know that I wouldn't have opened Microsoft Word to write something so off-topic to my channel as that. That is not what this video is about. There is, as usual, a question that I'm much more interested in. Why do we care? Really, why do we care? Which credibility do the Oscars have to say if a film is really good or not? I mean, viewing rates are plummeting down, we haven't had NPH hosting for almost a decade, and you know, hashtag Oscars so white. And I mean, Parasite won, but you could argue it's just so they could give this statue to Star Spangled Films for the next 10 years. And, you know, Green Book won. Who takes seriously an award ceremony that will award Green Book over Black Klansman? Shouldn't I just be happy that Fernanda Torres made an amazing film and all of us Brazilians congratulate her for it? Isn't that what this is all about? What's so great about international recognition? Isn't this a story for Brazilians? This video, Dear Stranger Online, is about why a country in the global south with vastly rich culture and history and traditions feels so lonely, so forgotten, and why we love to share.
Isso que vocês estão mostrando, né, que é um pouco uma obra brasileira para fora, tem uma coisa de orgulho nacional, pega um pouco na veia, dá uma vontade das pessoas verem um brasileiro.
É que eu acho que o Brasil é uma ilha continental, né? E a gente é isolado pela nossa língua. Ao mesmo tempo, a gente consome a nossa própria cultura, a gente tem total interesse por nós mesmos. Porque nós somos uma potência de 200 milhões de pessoas, nós somos um país complexo. Engraçado, né? Porque eu conheço a cultura francesa, eu conheço a cultura americana, eu conheço a cultura russa, a cultura alemã, a cultura italiana, mas eles não conhecem a cultura brasileira muito. E às vezes eu tenho pena de quem nunca leu Machado de Assis. Então, ao mesmo tempo, o Brasil tem esse complexo de vira-lata dessa não comunicação com o mundo, e por outro lado o Brasil tem pena do mundo não saber do que a gente sabe. Quando alguém fura a fronteira e leva algo que nos é pessoal para fora, é essa espécie de sentimento de que olha o que a gente tem de rico.
I have lived in Europe for almost 6 years now, and I miss my country a lot in very strange ways. One day I was taking a train in the walkable city with terrible weather that I live, and I got lost in thought with my headphones. And then one of the biggest voices in the history of soul, who joins alien cults and owns a hauntingly beautiful baritone named Tim Maia, started to whisper in my ears. Breasts that can lift up your soul, and the grooviest, juiciest, best line you'll ever hear. Acendo Farol, it's a song about a flat tire, but also about weed, I guess. And I had a smile on my face and started to feel my whole body light up just by hearing Tim. I started looking around me at these quiet, older Europeans, also looking so sad. And I felt sorry for them. How deeply sad is to spend 80 years on planet Earth with, yeah, sure, a solid and secure welfare state, but 80 years without ever listening to Tim Maia? And it was such an alien concept that I couldn't wrap my head around it. Every single person, young, old, rich, and poor, that I met in the first 20 years of my life knows and loves this bass line. I've never been in a place before where they just don't. And watching Fernanda's interview, it really clicked with me. We love Brazil, we know of its problems, sure, and some of us run away from it. But we feel lonely for not being able to share Brazil. Ever since I moved out, I always have the strong drive to share pão de queijo or share os normais. The language barrier means that Latin America has to translate our songs and North America never heard of our authors. We listen daily to music from Belgium or Australia. I watch films from Iran. Why can I point out Nevada of all places on a map, but people in the US will say that the capital of Brazil is Buenos Aires. The only other countries consuming things that we make are the Portuguese-speaking ones, and honestly, poor Portugal, being such a tiny place, they just cannot compete with the speed and pure amount of cultural output we create. It's almost a reverse colonization. When the last time I went to Lisbon, the radio was only playing Ivete Sangalo, and kids were learning our accents from YouTube videos. But I believe the language barrier makes it so the world doesn't know Brazil. Of course, there will be recognition in more specialized circles and prestige awards such as the Palme d'Or, and you know, European music nerds love Marcos Valle, but the average person not so much. And we feel lonely, but we also feel pity, because there is so much to know. More cynical people would call this a stray dog syndrome, but I think it's really a much more complex feeling of loving something deeply and longing to share it with others. To quote Bong Joon-ho, the director of Parasite, once you overcome the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles, you will be introduced to so many more amazing films.
I appreciate all of the homework I have to do because clearly I need to be exposed more to Brazilian cinema, and you have inspired that in me this year. So
Terra em Trans, you must see. It's a must see.
And this is something that I feel also in this little channel. Most of my audience is international, which for a Brazilian person puts me kind of in the same position as Fernanda Torres somehow. The 5% of a Brazilian audience that I have here will always post the loveliest of comments, cheer when they found out that we come from the same place, root for me to succeed, and keep telling more people around the world the stories of Brazil. Which is exactly what I'm doing right now. Like and subscribe. I do expect a more Brazilian audience in this video than usual because, with all due respect, it's really easy to bait Brazilians into watching a video. You just need to react to Brazilian snacks or give a review on a Brazilian book. They will come by the dozens to interact with you in the comments and say, "Come to Brazil, there is so much more to see," because we love to share. I will put a Castelo Rá-Tim-Bum song in a J.K. Rowling video or a Ney Matogrosso song to talk about atomic horror, and they will comment about how much it moved them. To us, it feels like we are sitting on a mountain of incredible artists and writers and performers and films, and when the rest of the world shows a tiny little bit of interest, we want to show more and more and more. We want to share this all with an international friend when inviting them to dinner, or an international partner when teaching our language. International people will become social media influencers in Brazil just by being gringos. And we will put 3 million likes on Fernanda's Instagram photo, and bully the Everybody Hates Chris actor, and fight anybody who will say the Wright brothers invented the airplane. We are probably the biggest nation, other than, I don't know, China, to create so much and have so few people to share it with. And now, we want to share Fernanda.
That generation, they were in a moment in Brazil, an incredible moment, musically, with bossa nova, the cinema novo, everything was like brilliant, and suddenly there was the coup, and later the killings. So they lost their utopian life. This woman had to learn that the utopian era was gone, and now she had to move on and be brave. So she's a great guide, I think. This movie, in a way, is a great guide for the future. I mean, it's to not be naive anymore.
Wait, the coup? Oh yeah, silly me, I didn't actually tell you yet what I'm Still Here is about. Well, that was a conscious narrative choice so that I could start the video on a light note, shit-talking Gwyneth Paltrow, fun and games, and actually bring you to the end with the powerful political topic that I actually wanted to talk about. It's what we, in the YouTube industry, call the H-bomber mousetrap. But yes, Brazilians love to share our culture and art, but with Fernanda Torres and I'm Still Here, what we are sharing is a bit more complicated. It's memory. Difficult memory, filled with pain and trauma. And hear me, from here on I will share soft spoilers for this film, but don't click away yet. It's as much as you can call a historical fact a spoiler, like, I don't know, spoiling a World War II movie by saying that Hitler dies. What I will share is knowledge that every Brazilian will already have when walking into the cinema, and I swear, it doesn't detract from the experience at all. It might even help you understand it better. In 1964, things were not the best back home. Our president, Jânio Quadros, resigned because he was a drama queen, and his vice president, who was a bit more lefty, took over. And I mean, this is the height of the Cold War. You cannot have a left-leaning government in Latin America, mainly not after the Cuban Revolution. So the CIA sent an aircraft carrier and 2 destroyers to Brazilian shores, and our wonderful military marched into the capital. Congress was closed, and shortly after, civil rights were suspended, including the right to habeas corpus and freedom of press. Arbitrary arrests, torture, and extrajudicial killings were institutionalized, and things were, as they say, bad. Opposition to the military in power, or people who they thought maybe had some connections to who knows somehow the opposition to the military in power, would just disappear. or made to disappear, if you know what I mean. Over 30,000 people were arrested, tortured, murdered, without any explanation or legal basis. The government didn't have to give any explanation. If they felt like you were a threat to their great revolution, or if they felt like you maybe knew someone who was a threat to the government, nothing could protect you. They owned the police and the judiciary. They were jury, judge, and executioner. The press was censored, and songs they didn't like were forbidden from being played. If you said anything bad about them, if you would read certain books or listen to some artists, this would get you on their radar. Music is actually a great way to explain just how the feeling of dread and persecution felt like, and it is usually how they explain this to kids in school. I won't play any music here because, YouTube copyright, but I will link in the description Charles Cornwell's video, How Brazil's Music Hid Protest Inside Harmony, which is a super interesting watch and will probably help you understand a bit more of the atmosphere in the 60s and 70s. And this atmosphere is the backdrop for I'm Still Here. The movie's poster, which shows a happy family on the beach in Rio in the 70s, has Eunice Paiva looking to the side, because some military trucks are driving by. An ever-looming shadow casting over her idyllic life and her perfect family.
Não vai ficar andando no carro daquele playboy, não.
Ô pai, eu achava que playboy era quem ficava bebendo uísque, fumando charuto o dia inteiro.
Sua mãe, mulher mais linda do mundo.
Deputado Rubens Paiva.
Eu já volto, filho.
Eunice and Rubens Paiva are an upper-middle-class couple living in Rio in the 70s with their 5 children, living a happy and chill life in a house that is always open to friends, 2 streets away from the beach. This is a house the director Walter Salles knew very well. He would be there often when he was 13, being a friend of one of the daughters. In multiple interviews, Salles described the Paiva family life as a life that stood up against the system just by being happy. By prioritizing friends, laughs, openness, tropicalia music, that house was a dream of a country with an unlocked door, open and democratic. The happiness inside the Paiva family home, Salles argues, stood against everything the dictatorship trying to enforce. Rubens Paiva is a loving father who loves life, music, cigars, and doggos. He was a congressman when the dictatorship closed Congress, and for the past decade had been living as an accomplished engineer. The perfect family, the perfect life, which falls apart one day when the military appears on their doorstep to ask Rubens some questions. He puts on his suit and calmly follows them to answer the questions. Time goes by, he doesn't come back, and Eunice gets restless. Suddenly, she finds herself and her 14-year-old daughter also being taken by the military, being incarcerated for weeks, and interrogated about her husband's connections. Tortured, she loses 20 kilos until she's finally let go, with no idea of where her husband is. He left with government officials and, out of the thin air, disappeared, never to be seen again. The film will not tell you this, but Rubens Paiva died on that same day, or the next. He was brutally tortured alongside 2 women for information he didn't have, so violently that he didn't resist. His body was buried and reburied 3 times, until finally thrown in the sea by the military, never to be found. And we were only given this information in 2014, more than 40 years after it happened. Before then, the official statement was, he just disappeared. The house loses its life after Rubens is gone, and Eunice sees her world crumble around her. What should she tell her kids? How to keep life going? Officially, he was missing, and in the 70s, without a death certificate, a wife couldn't get the money that was in their bank account without approval from her husband. And here is where Fernanda Torres shines, with a hauntingly beautiful performance of silent stoicism, of being forced to be strong and carry her family forward. A single mom raising 5 kids. A story shared by 30,000 other families who were also victims of the regime. Of actually never being allowed to grieve, never being handed a death certificate. Always hearing the cynical reply of, your husband is just missing.
This woman that doesn't show her emotions, that feels so much, that has such a feeling of injustice and anger and fear, and has to control herself in order take care of 5 children and to be rational and at the same time sweet, to smile. Her smile is something that when I was like watching her interviews, I said, what's this smile about? And a lot of times Walter would come to me and say in my ear, listen, it's perfect, but don't forget to smile. Because that was a key thing to this character. And I never felt what I felt with her.
And the importance of talking about memories that I get really angry, but we never change. It's wild. History repeats and repeats itself. First as tragedy, then as farce. You look at the discourse these torturers had back then and it's the exact same thing you find in weird Twitter comments today. Insisting that the coup was a revolution and that what they were doing, torture and murder, jury, judge and executioner, was the right thing to do. They won't call it a coup, they will call it a revolution against the communists. Just that, there were no communists. There wasn't a big Soviet plot to take over the Brazilian government. It was a made-up enemy and with a firm belief that they are the good guys. Everybody always thinks they are the good guys. And that makes what they are trying to do justified, be it arresting a 14-year-old, be it breaking into Congress because you don't like the person who was voted in. And Eunice fought for her memory, the memory of her family, talking to newspapers abroad because this wouldn't be published under military censorship. She reinvents herself, becomes a lawyer at 46, and becomes one of the most important political activists for indigenous rights in Brazilian history. She persisted for memory until her memory was forcibly taken away from her by time. This would be extremely on the nose if it was fiction, but Eunice in her old age had Alzheimer's, and the memory of a husband that she fought so hard to preserve was fading away from her. In this time skip, she's not played by Fernanda Torres anymore, but by her mom, Fernanda Montenegro. And this scene hit me like a goddamn truck, and the reason why I felt like I needed to write this video in the first place. Because I have had someone close to me living with Alzheimer's for the past 10 years. It is unbelievably cruel to see someone's memory slowly fading away, the essence of everything a person is. And sometimes it also feels like an entire country seems to forget, and it is heartbreaking. There have been in the past few years several attempts to erase the memory of this brutal dictatorship that tortured and killed and destroyed lives and families. People will come up and say it wasn't that bad, mostly because they are siding with the perpetrators, because they are taking advantage of it. There were 5 people involved in Rubens Paiva's murder, and out of these, 3 died without ever being investigated, some even earning honor badges from the army. 2 of his murderers are still alive, still receiving a government retirement pension of about $70,000 per year. When they die, this pension will be inherited by their children, and they will never face any consequences for that because Brazil was the only country in Latin America to pardon the perpetrators when the dictatorship was over. They will live happy, long, and comfortable lives. Their crimes forgotten. And there is an active fight from certain Brazilian political groups to keep that pardon up, to extend it to other crimes, especially by one politician you might have heard of before, former President Jair Bolsonaro. He has used the parliament floor before to pay homage to Carlos Ustra, a cruel, vile man and well-known military torturer.
Pela memória do coronel Carlos Alberto Brilhante Ustra, o pavor de Dilma Rousseff.
He tortured another former president, Dilma Rousseff. Bolsonaro has repeatedly tried to stop investigation on crimes committed during the dictatorship, saying, and I quote, that only dogs keep searching for bones. He has denied that Rubens Paiva was ever a victim of the military and has spit on a statue dedicated to him. And this man was voted president. And memory matters because this same vile person is now under investigation for plotting to murder Lula, the person he lost the election to, and also murder Lula's vice president and the Supreme Court justice that Elon Musk was beefing with on Twitter a few months ago. It was literally a full assassination plot out of a fucking spy movie back in 2022, including poisonings and special forces members of the military. Another plan for another military coup that has already arrested Bolsonaro's vice president, an army general. We live in a country haunted by the shadow of a military that deeply believe that they own this republic. They think that they ended the dictatorship and handed democracy to us as a gift. They think that they still need to moderate and guide the people when our voices chant in a direction they don't want to go. An army that has only ever been to war against its own people, from Rubens Paiva to Chico Mendes. I'm Still Here is about memory. To rescue the memory of this family is to rescue the memory of a country, no matter how hard they try to make us forget it. Just like the talent of the Fernandas, Machado de Assis and Pão de Queijo, it's part of what makes us who we are, and that's also why we really want to share it with you. To never let this repeat again. And the Oscar? Completely irrelevant. Fernanda might not even get nominated, who knows? And I don't care. She is a fantastic actress, as is her mom, and the best way I can think to honor them is to ask you to hear this story. The Oscar is just kind of a statement that we succeeded in what was actually important here. To share. Bring the spotlight to the memory of Eunice, a woman who had this very memory violently taken away from her, both by the dictatorship and by one of the most nasty diseases I have ever seen. Sharing Eunice's story with the world is to honor her and all the 30,000 families that were cruelly victimized by the regime. To share this little bit of Brazil, this really important bit of Brazil that she fought her entire life to share. Just as I want the world to know the music of Tim Maia, having the world know the name of Eunice Paiva is much, much, much more important than any silly little statue. To the Fernandas, all I have is love and admiration. To Gwyneth Paltrow, she can keep her doorstop. And to the dictatorship, I have hate. Hate and disgust.